Throwing the Tides Gauntlet's probably the hardest part of the dungeon. I contemplated just making this video talking about all of the trash in the dungeon in general, and if that's something that you want, if you're wanting a video that talks about the very beginning of the trash, I actually have a lot of tips for the beginning area as well, if that's something that people need. But it seemed like in one of my previous videos that the area that was going to be most requested and most sought after was going to be talking about the Gauntlet and kind of how to not get, farmed by these mobs a little bit. So basically, what it comes down to is, and what you need to know about these mobs is the unstable corruptions. Whenever they die, they AoE, but not only do they AoE, but they put a increased shadow damage taken buff or debuff on you. The debuff is a disease, so it is dispellable. But that's probably the most important part. On top of that, the Giblet Hunters and Aqua Mages do like bolt casts and apply a poison to your tank. And then the Tainted Sentry, which is the mob that you normally get farmed by, does a swell cast. Now the swell cast ticks, I want to say 4 times, and it pulses for AoE shadow damage. And so that's a very important thing that you need to know about the swell cast in general, is that it scales with like the unstable corruption stacks. And so what you can see right here, and we're doing this dungeon in a 21, but this is even relevant to lower level keys as well. But it's going to be maybe a little bit harder to pull off, is once we end up killing the unstable corruptions, we really make sure to let our debuff fall before the next swell cast. We make sure to not restack it. So whenever I'm using the nameplate cooldown tracker, I can see that the swell cast is coming in 2 seconds. We don't have any of the unstable corruptions on top of us. We don't have any more stacks as well. And so we know that we're not going to be in danger. The hardest part right here for this pull in general, since this pack has unstable corruptions inside of it, it's this first swell cast, because you're likely to have some of the debuffs while that swell is going off, and we don't have them immediately, but we do have them proc while the swells are going off. And what you can see right here is immediately we all defensive. And we actually even end up dropping barrier as well. Blur is popped, Pact is popped, I popped Bark Skin. Aimer is gonna probably DP. Yep, he Desperate Prayers and PSs himself too, because he's scared of dying, right? Because we're having the explosions from the corruptions while the swell is going off, and we know that that's very, very dangerous. But that's probably the most dangerous part of this gauntlet for us, because we're going to end up playing this a little bit slower than a lot of other groups. So what we then do is we're in combat with some unstable corruptions after the pack is over, so we kill those off. Then we have this Tainted Sentry here, and we are going to wait for this swell cast to go off before we nuke these unstable corruptions. And I know that this is hard in a pug, and this is what I was kind of saying earlier. Some of these things are going to be more challenging in a pug than in a coordinated group, but because that we know that like we're not in danger from the swell cast with 0 stacks, we might be in danger. I am really scared about all of these corruptions exploding, and I am calling in comms that we should probably dark this. Because we're going up to probably 12 stacks, something like that, and our Disc Priest actually ends up going down because of it. It's not the end of the world, but like making sure that, and the timing of which we killed it is actually very important, because if you look at the nameplate cooldown tracker again, we are at 15 stacks, but we don't have another swell cast for 2 more seconds, and then our debuff is going to fall in 3 seconds. So our debuff is falling before the swell cast even begins, and we beat it, but like that's not like the most relevant part. And so we beat it because of the timing of which we killed the unstable corruptions. And again, it's very timing based, and knowing when you should kill corruptions versus let the swell damage go off is important. And so now we're again slow rolling our stacks. We're making sure that we get up to 6 because we kill all those corruptions off, but we're making sure to not refresh. We're pulling this pack of Giblet Aqua Mages with all of these corruptions, and then we're going to try to position ourselves, and we don't do a great job of this, but realistically we try to position ourselves up front, not close enough to where we pull these sentries, but close enough to where we're not pulling the unstable corruptions that are behind us, because again, we don't want them to come in late. At the end of the day, if you get 1 or 2 that come in late, it's not like the end of the world, but after we just like have cleared out the gauntlet, there's no need for us to pull any more of these mobs. They pull based off proximity, and I think you have to be like right here about where my mouse is to actually aggro them. So we need to be pretty far up. It's a bit tricky on Sanguine, especially whenever they're constantly spawning in that middle area. But like ultimately it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. We do get stuck here. We out of combat res our Demon Hunter because that pack is a bit sketch, and then we're going to be going into the double Sentry. And the double Sentry, it's a bit sketch, but it's doable if you don't have stacks of the unstable corruption and if you aren't pulling these. Now you see that we're pulling these right here because we accidentally got into combat with them, but what we're not going to do is we're not going to immediately go into the sentries like a lot of other groups would. We sit there and we wait a couple of seconds. We know the swell is delayed on pull. We didn't take the unstable corruptions into the pack. We also waited a second before we pulled the boss because we know that we can't do double sentry with double swell cast with the debuff, but we can do double swell cast without the debuff. And so again, it's just about slow playing and debuff management from those unstable corruptions, and it's something that's going to come with time. I will say I've been farmed by these mobs a bunch of times. These packs suck, frankly. And I don't blame anybody who gets farmed by them. I think it is a very common occurrence, and I think that these packs are quite challenging, probably likely to get nerfed. I'm recording this on Monday before the reset, and I'm not going to really re-record this. I wouldn't be shocked, though, if by the end of day today, this pack or this gauntlet is getting nerfed. Swell is going to have its damage reduced by 50%. But at the end of the day, I think that a lot of the concepts for how you should be dealing with this gauntlet are largely similar over the course of the entire season. And those are basically my thoughts on Throne of the Tides in general. If you're looking for, or the Throne of the Tides gauntlet in general, if you're looking for like a guide on how to deal with all of the trash in the dungeon, or the trash that's at the beginning of the dungeon, I think I have a couple of pretty good tips about like avoiding Snapdragon pursuits, and there's some stuff that you can do with like the Ravager. There's some stuff that you can do with the mobs that put the heal absorb on you, with the Crushing Depth cast. Like I do have a lot of tips in regards to that, so if you're looking for that, make sure you comment down below to make sure that I know that that's something that I should be looking forward to doing. Yeah, in the meantime, hope you guys have been enjoying the more frequent uploads. Come check out my stream, and I will see you guys later. Goodbye.